Hey, how's everyone doing? Wait, do I have Yay, okay. Welcome in. What's up, Juno? Let me know if you need anything. Gosh. My mouth feels tight. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Betty bought some butter, but she said the butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter that will make my batter better. So it was better. Betty bought a bit of better butter. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? He would chuck wood as much as he could and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chuck wood. She sells seashells by the seashore. How can a clam cram in a clean cream can? Okay. Well, how's everyone doing? Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all the things that are good, helpful, and necessary. Let's see. Let me also send this out. Okie doke. Artichoke. Is it doing the thing? Okay. Well, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. I hope that everybody's having as good of a day as I am. Whoa. Fact Junior roll. I'm so glad to hear that you got the Michael Humer book. I can't wait to see you. Am I doing call-ins? Yeah, I am doing call-ins. It's my TikTok is allegedly Ian. And if you want to call in, if you want to debate whether or not God exists, if you're think, geez, it's gonna be a rough day. If you're of the opinion that God does exist, then I respectfully ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists, and with that, we'll go to the very next guest. Very first guest, maybe. Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 20.
Okay, what religion?
Judaism.
Okay, what makes you think God exists?
Yes, so before we get into how I can prove God exists, the claim that God isn't real, your title.
We've talked a number of times, haven't we?
No. This is the first time it popped up on your...
Okay, I could have sworn that we've talked before.
I mean, maybe you spoke with someone else who's Jewish. But...
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'm like insanely anti-Semitic. That's my bad. But listen, yeah, what makes you think God exists?
Right, so before we get into that, saying
Oh
God
wait,
is
are you in the
real...
bathroom, or because everyone seems to think that you're like shitting?
I'm in my room, I don't know.
Cam up?
Hmm?
Turn the camera on? You can just show the room around you. You don't need to show your face or anything.
I'm not showing, I'm not.
Okay. Well, hey, if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I'm not quite sure the thing that everybody else is hearing, but wait, there's an echo? Oh, okay. How's it going, Ishi?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, how old are you?
20.
Yep, and what religion?
Let's say I haven't been able to rule out the inexistence of God.
But do you think God exists?
Just that I haven't been able to rule it out.
Okay, so I'm really only looking to debate with believers. If that's not you, then I probably need to move on to the next one. Only request to join if you're 18 or older, if you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists as we go to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
Yep, how old are you?
I'm 19.
Yep, and what religion?
I'm Yazidi. So first of all, I want to say that I'm neither Muslim, Christian, or Jewish. Yeah, I'm Yazidi and I live in Germany.
How do you spell that?
Yazidi?
Yeah.
Y-A-Z-D-I.
Okay, what do you believe?
Hello?
Yeah, like what does your belief include?
Yeah, we have like 7 angels, a single God, and we believe in reincarnation, and we don't believe in hell. Yeah, that's
Okay. What makes you think that that's true? Do you believe in like a god? Probably the important question.
yeah.
Okay. And by God you mean like a personal ultimate foundation, like something that's responsible for the existence of everything else. That's
Personal?
a person.
No, it's not the person.
It's not like a mind.
I don't know how I can define God, to be honest. Like, I can't imagine him. Like, imagination has boundaries, you know?
That's fine, but I'm just asking, like, does he have mental states? Is he all knowing? Does he I don't know, does he will things?
Yeah, kind of, all knowing. Wait, I want to start off by asking you, do you think God exists?
Clearly
Or are
not.
you agnostic to it?
Yeah, I obviously don't think God exists.
But saying that he doesn't exist is such a radical belief, in my opinion.
Okay. What's the argument for that?
Like it's a belief because there's nothing that disproves his existence. In
You
the
don't know
same
why
way,
I believe that?
You want to tell me?
Yeah, sure. It's because the existence of a God is impossible insofar as God's relation to time and creation leads to contradictions, kind of all the routes that are even like logically possible, or like all the ways that you could conceive that God could exist, or lead to contradictions, which is why he doesn't exist. So do you think that God was always creating, or do you think he began creating at some point?
I don't know because I'm a human being. My imagination, it doesn't extend to this, you know?
Well, let's go down both routes. You know, let's say God began to create. Well, if God began to create, that means he would go from a state of inaction. Wait, sorry, we're disproving God. You wanted the disproof of God. I'm giving it to you. You know, there's no need
I'm
to pivot
saying
away
you
to
can't
something
disprove him.
else. I'm literally giving you the disproof of him. So, you know, I know you're saying that I can't disprove him. I'm literally disproving him as we speak. I don't know if your debate strategy.
Just directly tell me, because
your debate strategy was about like coming in here and saying, "Well, you can't disprove him." I think you're going to be very surprised at the syllogism that I give you that leads to his non-existence. So we have two routes.
Can you tell me just so directly?
I'm literally trying to. Just calm down.
Okay.
Yeah. Either God began to create or he did not begin to create. If God did not begin to create, but creation exists, that means that he was always creating, which means that he never actually brought the universe into existence, which means that he's not actually the creator of the universe. But that's a contradiction, because it's a contradiction.
So you're saying science is true? So that's your argumentation. Your argumentation is based on science, right?
I think that you might have like some listening problems if that's what you took out of what I just said. But
your assumptions, your claims are based on science, right?
It's a philosophical argument.
No, you're saying like space-time and creation. So it has to do something with science, right?
I'm a bit worried that you're not tracking. The claim at its foundation is a philosophical one. You know, this argument was literally pulled through from a person from 400 AD named Proclus, long before the advent of things like the scientific method.
So what was the contradiction again?
Yeah, the contradiction is that God both is a creator of the universe, but never created the universe.
Wait, he's a creator, but never created?
Yeah. Because if he was always creating, then creation just always existed, which means it was never brought into existence, so he never created it.
Can you explain it to me, because I don't get it?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I could try throwing up the notepad. Maybe the notepad would help. What do we got? Okay. If God was always creating, then creation always existed. If creation always exists, then God never brought it into existence. If God never brought it into existence, then God never created it. But that's a contradiction. So.
But how do you know the properties of God?
Sorry, which property do you think is being presupposed here?
Yeah, with the creation.
Do you think creation is a property of God?
No, it's like...
You said that, you asked me, how do I know the properties of God? Which
yeah,
properties?
like, how do you know, like, how he acts?
What? I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
how
if
do you
God
know-
always created, then creation would always exist.
Yeah, but how do you know that that this is true?
Because of the syllogism. That's how we know the conclusion is true.
I'm confused. Wait, hold on. If God was...
I grant that.
Sorry, I'm too confused to understand it.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming up. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. If you don't have some sort of reason to think that God exists, I kindly ask that you do not request to join.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? How old are you?
Okay. So you're using philosophy to negate God, right?
I'm certainly trying to.
Okay. Who said I think therefore I am?
Rene Descartes. What is this, trivia
Okay,
night?
so if we think there is a God, then for the people that think that there is.
I think you're a
Simple
bit
as that.
confused on what Rene Descartes is saying. In fact, like looking at the Latin, like the original Latin might help us out here. So, okay. Rene Descartes' quote is dubio ergo cogito, cogito ergo sum. So dubio there is just referring to like a general state of doubt. So if we place ourselves into a state of doubt, you know, we're having a cogito, which just refers to like literally any mental state. It's translated as thinking, but it also includes like, I mean, like any mental state is included under cogito. But then cogito, if there's some sort of mental state, then there must be some sort of being. That's all Rene Descartes is saying, is that you can know that you exist in virtue of the fact that you're doubting, because if you're doubting, then you're having like some sort of like mental state. And if there's some sort of mental state, then there's like a bearer of this mental state, which
How
means that
many
you can
of
be
us
certain that
people
you
that
actually
believe in God doubt
exist.
in God himself? So
Okay.
that just is the same thing.
It's not very responsive to what I just said.
Then elaborate.
Yeah. What I'm specifically pointing out is that Rene Descartes' argument is not an argument for if you think something, then that thing automatically becomes true. It's an argument for, in virtue of thinking anything at all, you yourself must exist because you are the one who is thinking the thoughts.
Okay. You want to elaborate more on that or add into it? Because I'm done.
Okay. There's nothing else?
Not really.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on up here. Well, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all the good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. And with that, we'll go to the very next guest. You know, if you want to be not as confused about philosophy as that guy was, you should join the book club. We're reading Michael Huemer's Knowledge, Reality, and Value in the Discord. It's discord.gg/allegedlyian. Currently, we're reading chapter 14. Hey, how's it going? How old are you?
39.
Okay, what religion?
I'm somewhat agnostic.
Okay. I'm only looking to debate with believers, so if you're not a believer, if there's a state of being, then there's being. Yeah, I think, Moxie, that's like roughly my reading of it too. That, you know, it's just that there's like some sort of like mental state, which of course like has being, therefore like being itself must exist. All right, if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. What's up? How's it going? The Final Cut 49.
I'm doing what I do. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How old are you?
I am 39 years old.
Okay. And what religion?
Well, I was raised Christian. I got baptized about 5 times, so I kind of understand the God isn't real part. But at the same time, I do feel like there is some force that is constantly expanding, which I could call God. And I wonder, what do you think about that?
I don't think that you should call a force that's expanding God. If by force that's expanding you just mean something like dark energy, you know, the thing that's leading to space reflecting off of itself and expanding, no, you shouldn't call that God. It's like a physical thing.
I'm sort of on the fringe because, and you know, I know that you want to speak to a lot of different people. So I'll try to make it quick. But in between the idea
right now,
of
especially, yeah, what's up?
The idea of there being kings and there being a God, I think that the kings have usurped the entire realm of knowledge. And if there is a God, he's probably out of reach because our knowledge is limited.
I mean, yeah, it could be the case that the kings have usurped our realm of knowledge and that God is just out of reach. But at that point, it seems like if that's what you believe, you should probably just be agnostic.
I feel you. Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, hey, thanks so much for having me, he says. Fuck my baka life, dude. I dropped my pencil. Whoa, thanks. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. And with that, we will go to the very next guest. Whoa, thanks so much, Slessy Baka. I appreciate you. Baka.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, how's it going, Ethan? How old are you?
Hi there. Thanks for accepting my request. So I've watched a few of your streams. I think you're an interesting person. And I like your approach and I like your openness to dialogue.
Sure.
So, I mean, the statement God isn't real, that's like a very definitive statement. What do you think of John Schellenberg's ultimism and his sort of partnered hypothesis to it of evolutionary religion? Are you familiar?
I'm familiar with J.L. Schellenberg. I think ultimism, if I understand that correctly, it's just claiming that there's like an ultimate foundation to reality. And then what specifically distinguishes theism is that theism is like a form of ultimism, but the ultimate foundation is personal.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have established enough views in metaphysics or like structures of metaphysics to know whether or not I'm going to be some sort of like foundationalist about metaphysics, like whether there is some sort of foundation, and if there's foundational things in metaphysics, whether there will just be one or whether there will be multiple. So I'm really not too sure.
Yeah, interesting. So the reason I mention it is because, like I said, the statement that you have written up there, God isn't real, it's like a very concrete, definitive statement. And I'm sympathetic towards atheism, agnosticism. Like, the problem of evil is definitely like a huge problem for theists, you know. But I think Schellenberg's approach is appealing because it avoids definitive statements like God is real or God isn't real. His hypothesis in regard to evolutionary religion is that we aren't far enough in our evolution as a species to be able to make a definitive statement of God is real, God isn't real, because we're such finite beings and we're just not that far along in our evolution yet.
Well, I
What do you
certainly
think
think
about
I
that?
have an argument to establish the non-existence of God.
Okay,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, either God was always creating or he was not always creating. If he's not always creating, then that means that at some point he begins to create, but that, of course, would require a change, which means that God would need to be in time, so he's not an ultimate being. The alternative to that is that God is always creating, but under that circumstance, then creation just always exists, at which point he never actually created. There was no bringing creation into existence.
So do you, I mean, this is I forgot what this is called, and I think you're touching on it, the idea of God can't change. If God creates, then he does change. Is that what you're basically saying? I know that's
Yeah,
kind of sort of
whatever
like a
God is doing eternally is what he has to be doing eternally. He can't be doing some things at some points and different things at different points, insofar as that would require a change.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think that like the Neoplatonists would agree with you, because that's why they have like the emanation theory, that God is eternally emanating these levels of reality all the way down to our world. And I mean, I do find myself very persuaded by that line of thinking. I understand that. I also on this sort of topic, on this sort of point, I've heard you express the view on your live streams that you believe in an eternal universe, that the universe has always existed.
Yep.
It's my understanding that in physics, that's a minority position. Can you explain why you hold that position?
Yeah, I think that there's like certain a priori arguments that establish the eternal existence of things like time, for example. But also, if you look to what the physicists are saying, I'd imagine that the majority of them are probably something like agnostic to whether or not the universe is eternal. This is a recent survey of cosmologists. The 68% opinion related to the Big Bang is that the Big Bang is a theory that says that the universe evolved from a hot, dense state, that says nothing about whether there was an absolute beginning of time or not. So physicists speaking from a physics perspective would probably say that the physics, like the data from physics, does not indicate that the universe began to exist or that it always existed, although nevertheless, there are certain physicists like Sean Carroll, for example, who argue that based on the quantum eternity theorem, that if there's a non-zero amount of total energy in the universe, that would indicate that the universe has always existed, insofar as it would eternally be changing.
Yeah, that's Sean Carroll came to mind because I mean he believes in the big bounce, right? That there's sort of the universe, or the matter, the material, the space and time that makes up the universe. It's in this constant flow of expansion and contraction back to that infinite density, and then expands outward, and multiple universes in a succession are have existed. Is that your understanding as well?
I have no idea. I haven't looked into specifically his views on things like cosmology. I'm only familiar with his views on quantum mechanics.
Okay, interesting. So, I mean, can you repeat your argument against the existence of God?
Yeah,
I think that was an interesting argument.
Either he was always creating or he was not always creating. If God's not always creating, then he needs to go from not creating to creating, but that's a change. All the things that change are in time, which just means that at that point God would be in time. So he's not an ultimate being because he first of all, time exists independently of him. I guess maybe that was the only point, is that time exists independently of him. Oh, also he couldn't have created time. I guess that's the second point. Sure. So that's why it's unviable to say that God was not creating and then started creating. The alternative to that is that there was no beginning to God's creation. He's just always creating.
Right.
But if that's the case, then God never actually creates. There's no coming into existence of the universe. It just always existed.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So that does leave room for the Neoplatonic worldview, because emanation is. Are you familiar with the emanation theory of Neoplatonism?
Vaguely, although the problem is that I don't think that there's anything. I think probably the critique that I'd have of like an emanation view is that it doesn't seem like I would ever need to posit the existence of a mind or like a personal being in order to arrive at the conclusion that the universe was eternally emanated from something. At that point, I just think that positing like a personal ultimate foundation as opposed to just an ultimate foundation out of which the universe emanates from, it just seems like unparsimonious.
Yeah, the Neoplatonists are impersonalists in regard to God. The monad, the one, is an impersonal ultimate reality.
I don't think I'm anti the one. I'm anti like personal ultimate foundations. I don't think those exist.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. Like I said, the problem of evil is, I think, a big problem for theism, and the idea that a perfect personal God intentionally created a world with so much suffering, especially animal suffering. That's one that I really can't get around. Alex O'Connor talked about that on his Jubilee video recently, and I thought that was pretty persuading.
Absolutely.
Again, I do think that like the Neoplatonic worldview is, what would you say, appealing, but more than appealing, that's probably not the right word for it, because I think that Plotinus and those after him thought about these kind of things. So like for the problem of animal suffering, for example, like Neoplatonism posits reincarnation, so that at least, it has some sort of answer for why is an animal suffering in this life, which might seem pointless to our eyes, but maybe it's a reaction against their actions in the past life, things like that. What do you think about like a reincarnation to justify animal suffering?
I think that commits you to not great positions. I think that, and maybe you would just have to bite the bullet, but I think you're probably going to end up having to say that every bad thing that's ever happened to everyone who's ever experienced a bad thing was deserved in some sense. That like every child that gets raped, like they deserved it because of like wrongs they did in their past life. I guess like to me that just sounds like remarkably unintuitive.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting, and I think that Hinduism has been faced with that objection for a long time, and from what I understand, the Hindus respond by saying, look, it might be their karmic lot that this terrible thing happened to them, and that might be a metaphysical explanation, but we can still have compassion for them and try to ameliorate that suffering and make something good out of the suffering that has happened as a result of their karmic lot.
So here's like kind of like the quirk to that view. Let's say I see somebody, they're about to get stabbed. I could stop it. Well, either they deserve to get stabbed or they don't. If they don't deserve to get stabbed, then you kind of run into the problem, which is that the problem of evil is just no longer explained. People are getting things that they don't actually deserve. Like this isn't actually this person's karmic lot. The alternative is that they do deserve it, at which point it would be an injustice for me to interfere.
I guess I would frame it a little bit different. So if somebody's about to get stabbed and I prevented it, then it might still be their karmic lot for something bad to happen, but maybe not that drastic or in that way. And I've gained some karmic merit by preventing the stabbing. Right?
Sure. So I think that that's all fine and good. That maybe you want to say that actually like the reincarnation is or the reason why you should interfere is because it's like the good thing to do. But I guess I don't think that it's actually good to interfere with things I don't think it's good to interfere with people getting what they deserve. I think that would be strictly wrong. If somebody deserves to get some sort of punishment and then you interfere to stop that, at that point, like, justice is just not being carried out. Like, I don't think that
Yeah.
that's like an injustice on your part.
I think it's interesting because I was just thinking about this the other day in regard to Jainism, and I heard a Jain monk say in regard to the karmic view, the language of karma being deserved or not misses the point. I'm not saying that you're missing the point. I'm just saying that this was his response. The idea of karma is cause and effect, right? So bad begets bad, good begets good. And so it's not so much about this bad thing happened to me because I deserved it because of my karmic lot in a past life or even in something I did in this life. It's just the natural reaction based on an understanding of karma being a law of nature, kind of like gravity. So by preventing it, it's not so much interfering with justice. It's just sort of trying to steer nature towards something that's more conducive to flourishing. Because if you think of karma as more of a law of nature rather than a deserved or undeserved justice system, then you wouldn't say, I don't think either of us would say that it's immoral to interfere with the laws of nature if we can bring about human flourishing by breaking those laws of nature. Is that fair to say?
Potentially, although you're going to run into a couple of problems, which is that you're going to have to end up making like some very strong evidential claims, and you'll just have no evidence for those claims. Like, for example, you're going to need to say that somehow like all of the suffering in nature amongst like animals is due to, all the animals that are getting like torn to shreds, like they did something evil in their past life. But there's just way too much suffering in nature for it to be able to be accounted in that way. I think when you really start to understand like the scale of suffering that exists present in nature, it becomes like really daunting, the task of even trying to account for it. Like, there's far more suffering going on in nature just over the course of like a year than goes on amongst like humans alone, probably throughout the entire course of humanity. It's just so much suffering.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I guess that would kind of refute any form of proportionality of karma, right? I think that's what you're getting at. Let's say all these animals that are suffering were humans in their past life that committed heinous acts, but you're saying that there isn't a proportionate amount of heinous acts being committed to equal the amount of animal suffering in nature. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess. Okay, I think that this probably also runs into the problem that if you're saying that this is like some sort of benevolent force of nature, then surely it needs to be like proportional. I mean, I think that you would have strong moral obligations to interfere with somebody about to suffer horrifically, like way more than the suffering that they caused.
Yeah.
So it seems
again,
like
I wouldn't say
I wouldn't say
that it's benevolent. I think that some Hindus might say, like Vaishnavas might say it's benevolent because, like the Bhagavad Gita says that karma acts in accordance with God's will. Basically, that's not verbatim, but yeah, I think that you would run into that. But again, I think if we think of karma more in the Jain sense or the Buddhist sense of just a neutral, impersonal law of nature where it's cause and effect, I think that's more of what I'm getting at. But again, I understand your argument of the proportionality.
But then there probably just is no problem of evil if you don't think that the force behind it all is good.
I'm sorry?
There probably just is no problem of evil if you think that the force behind it is benevolent.
Right.
Or is not
exactly.
benevolent, rather. Sorry, the opposite.
Yeah, no, I get it. And that Sri Ramakrishna kind of made that argument in response to the problem of evil that, if you believe that that karma is the work of a benevolent God, then there really is no problem of evil.
No, the reverse. Like if there's no benevolent God that's behind karma, then presumably at that point there is no problem of evil, because the problem of evil is trying to account for the fact that there's this all good God, morally perfect, couldn't possibly do anything that would be morally better than what he actually does.
Sure.
There's like horrific suffering, and yet it seems like there would be some sort of obligation for that being to stop this suffering because he's in a position to do so.
Yeah, I understand. Interesting.
But so I mean,
Yeah.
if the being's not all good, then there's no obligation, right? That's not a contradiction, you know. You have
Right,
some
sure.
like being who doesn't give a shit, not giving a shit. Like that's, you know, that's consistent.
Yeah. Interesting. And I think going back to one of the points that you made, I mean, ultimately these metaphysical theories are somewhat predicated on just belief, you know. So there is an element, even if you're a Jain or a Buddhist, who, you know, the problem of evil isn't really even a problem because it's non-theistic religion, but it has karma. I think that sorry, I lost my train of thought. Well, I think I was just basically agreeing with you that, yeah, if you take God out of the picture, there is no problem of evil. Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. So do you think that there is room for any type of religion as far as a
Depends.
good something that there is some merit to religion if it's within the bounds of reason and is conducive to more flourishing than harm?
Are you asking like, do I think it's like pragmatically acceptable for somebody to be religious because it makes their life better?
No, not necessarily that. Like, do you? Well, maybe so. Do you think that we as a society would be better off believing that there is some sort of that, just going beyond physicalism? Because I was thinking about this the other day. Like, if we truly lived in a society where we were all physicalists, right, and believed in basically like survival of the fittest.
Oh, I don't think that
And
follows. I think you could think that
well,
all there
okay.
is like all there could be the physical, and then you still have like moral obligations.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting. Where do those moral obligations come from?
So I'd probably want to give something like a Kantian account. It's broadly called like reasons internalism. But it basically seeks to establish that everybody, just based on like the sorts of things that they pursue, like the necessary means in order to achieve your end, is going to be something that's shared across all people, which would basically that the only worldviews that don't contradict themselves with respect to you reasonably pursuing the things that you want to achieve, that all of these ones are going to say that you have moral obligations. I can give you some examples of that. So
Yeah.
the first example, we could take like Kant's argument. Kant basically argues that in order to pursue various things, you need to determine that these things are valuable. But in order for these things to be valuable, I mean, that value ultimately comes from the fact that you're pursuing them, at least in your view, it does. Which means that in order for you to confer value onto this, like you yourself would need to be intrinsically valuable insofar as you deem other things to be valuable just because you want to achieve them. But then at that point, you're saying that you're intrinsically valuable just because you're capable of valuing things. So at that point, you need to say that all beings who value things are intrinsically valuable in order to remain logically consistent. Otherwise, you'd have a contradiction on your hands. Another version that I find quite compelling is something that comes from Alan Goworth. He basically makes the argument that I'm an agent. What that means is that I take actions to achieve goals. But you know, in order to achieve any of these goals or take any of these actions, I need my freedom and well-being, which means I need for you to not interfere with it. So basically, in order to achieve any goal that I might have, I'm claiming a right to the freedom and well-being necessary to actually achieve that. But if me being an agent is sufficient for me to have that right, then all agents must likewise have that right. Otherwise, there's a contradiction.
Interesting. Well, so do you? It's interesting because a lot of the arguments that you've laid out in this Kantian framework are in regard to the things we pursue. And do you think that pursuit is, because now I'm coming from more like the Buddhist perspective, that pursuit in and of itself is bound up with suffering. So there's never going to be a world in which illness, old age, death, dissatisfaction don't exist. So the best thing that we can do is sort of live solitary existences and not pursue worldly goods.
Well, clearly the Buddha didn't pursue enough foot jobs. Let's go. Let's fucking go.
But do you think? I mean, there's a sense in which, in this Kantian framework you're proposing, it presupposes the goodness of these worldly pursuits. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that you're going to need to, in order to remain logically consistent, I think that you're going to need to dictate that, in fact, the things that you're pursuing, you have a reason to be pursuing those things.
And so, but what if it's just blind survival?
Can you give me like an example of that?
Well, in regard to pursuing, I want to pursue money so that I can live a more comfortable life, so that I can suffer less. And ultimately, this is all conducive to like survival, right? Everything the end goal then is survival. And I'm not sure that survival in and of itself is a good.
So, okay. I wish I could write up like a diagram really quickly. So let's say that you have like, I'm going to create like a graph really quickly. So, okay, let's say the things that you pursue are like a bit like this, right? So you have like these things that you pursue at the bottom. I go to the gym so that I can be healthy. I eat healthy foods so that I can be healthy. I get to sleep on time each night so that I can be healthy. And then I'm healthy for like some further reason. And there's like this like ultimate end here. I think that there's like a very real and interesting conversation related to like, what is this top node? Maybe it's something that like Aristotle probably wants to say that this is like human flourishing, like the good life. And in order to get this, like these nodes down here need to be something like virtue. At least they need to be compatible with things like virtue. But the arguments that I've just given you, like the Kantian arguments, don't even look up here. They just operate at the level of like right here. Like in order to be logically consistent with taking these actions, you need to commit yourself to things like saying like you have the right to freedom and well-being in order to actually bring these things about. So
yeah. Okay. So I get it. And I think that that's maybe what I was trying to express. Like it's at a very like, worldly level, right? So what you just said that you have a right to the freedom and well-being, things like what determines that right?
Yeah, that would just be laws of logic itself, that there's a logical contradiction in not supposing that you have that right to pursue the things that you want to pursue, but then you have that right just on the basis that you're an agent, which means all agents must likewise have a right to freedom and well-being. Otherwise, there's a contradiction.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure I get that establishes a right. Like, and I'm not saying I'm against people pursuing well-being. I'm just kind of trying to parse out the logic here.
Sure. I can spell that out a bit more. So you have a right in virtue of there being like some claim made against all others to not do a specific thing or not interfere with your doing a specific thing. That's a negative right, if you will. You're basically saying like all of you fucks like don't touch my freedom and well-being. Now the way that you would arrive at that is because you're an agent, which means that you take actions to achieve goals. But in order for you to achieve any of your goals, you need your freedom and well-being. If something is a necessary means to the end that you are pursuing, you have a reason to do that thing or have that thing. And if you have a reason to have it, then you ought have it. And if you ought have it, others ought not interfere with it. And if others ought not interfere with it, well, that's just what a right is.
Well, so you have a reason for having it, and therefore you ought to have it.
Yep.
That to me, I mean that's worthy of contemplation, but it does seem like a bit of a jump because
that's literally what the word ought means. Is like you ought literally just means like you have a reason to do this thing. Like if I told you, if I know that you're trying to win that chess game, and the way to do it is by moving your rook to the back file, I think it's, I mean, the natural sentence there would be to say you should move your rook there or should means basically the same thing as ought, but yeah.
Right. Well, I'm glad you said that, because that was my next question. Are you using ought as a synonym for should?
Yeah.
Why should somebody pursue freedom and well-being and goals within that framework?
Because
why
in order
should
to
they
pursue anything, you need your freedom and well-being. If somebody comes and like kills you, they take away your freedom and well-being. Well, you can't. There's just no more pursuits at that point.
No, I get that. Why should they pursue what they perceive to be good in the first place?
So, in virtue of pursuing anything, you have already deemed that thing is worth pursuing.
Could I be mistaken?
You could be mistaken, and the way that we determine whether or not you are mistaken, there's a couple of ways, but like through rational reflection. But then also, I mean, it kind of bites into the argument that I'm putting forward, where if what you're pursuing violates somebody else's right to freedom and well-being, well, suddenly there's a contradiction on your view.
Right. No, I agree with that. I'm just talking about the pursuit in a broader sense, whether pursuit, striving is good. Because again, like taking the view of like a Buddhist, like the fundamental problem is that we keep desiring, we keep striving, and we sometimes get what we want, sometimes not, but it's always ultimately impermanent, therefore dissatisfactory. So why pursue any of these worldly things at all? What would your response to that be?
Yeah, because I enjoy the things that I'm able to get, whether that be like physical material possessions, but probably more specifically like experiences. That the experiences that I'm able to achieve are worthwhile. That I probably actually would make the argument that the thing that's at the top of the hierarchy is something like Aristotle's The Good Life. It's going to be like some sort of life that leaves nothing to be rationally desired. And I think that a life that's full of attempting to pursue things and trying your best and doing so virtuously is just a way better life than the life that tries to cut off all of your desires and live like a monk. Even though these things are impermanent, even though they're, going away, the thing that doesn't go away if you do it right is the good life.
I mean, death kind of takes away the good life, and that comes for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not really sure how that would change like any of the arguments, though.
Well, just that like ultimately you're going to lose it, so why not live a simple life, trying to eliminate desire and be content as possible?
Because I'm not living for death, I'm living for life.
Interesting. All right, well, we've gotten far away from the God question, but I appreciate the conversation.
Yep, I had a great time. Thank you so much for coming on up.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, that person was pretty great. I really appreciate that. Larry, thanks so much for the $50 super chat. That's incredible, Larry. Let's get a big W for Larry. I appreciate the heck out of you. Thank you so much, Larry. Let's get a big W for Larry. I really couldn't do this without support from folks like you. It's really quite helpful. Bring up Grayson. Where is that person? That person's not here. I'm not sure. Sounds like Dr. Chalkboard had another one of his hallucinations. Okay. Well, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. No, it's okay. Well, if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. And with that, we'll go to the very next guest. Rainer, we already talked. We already talked today. Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Yeah, how old are you?
can you hear me?
Yes, how old are you?
I'm 18.
You're 18?
18.
Yes. What religion?
Originally Muslim.
What? Okay, but do you think God exists?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I do, but not exactly in the sense of Islam. I mean, I'm not sure of the way that he does.
Okay, but you do
You know,
think
I
that
wouldn't say
you do think that there's like a mind that created the universe?
yes.
Okay. What makes you think that?
Well, that's the natural argument.
I think I'm having trouble understanding you. What'd you say? If you're off the app, I can't hear you. Got to come back to the app. Got to go back to the app. You were waiting for so long. You're off the TikTok app. Masks. No. Oh, you're back. Cool.
Hey.
Are you? You're adjusting your volume. You're not like pondering the orb over there, are you?
Yeah. I was just my brother came in. I was trying to leave the room.
Sure.
Yeah, that's kind of sensitive. My family's kind of religious.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, I understand. But yeah, what makes you think God exists?
Yeah, so what I was talking...
You keep on cutting out.
Hey?
Hello?
Yeah, so sorry for that. Yeah, I can hear you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Oh, wait. Sorry, let me...
All right, so what I said is... What I said was that it's the natural argument to say that God exists. For a thing to exist, there must be something that creates it. And that's just the very basic thing. I know that this isn't the entire thing, but I'm telling you this. I am waiting for your reply to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you don't want to say that. That actually would disprove God if that were true. If in order for a thing to exist, something needs to create it, then that means that in order for God to exist, someone would need to create God, which means that you've committed yourself to an infinite chain of gods. There's one God who creates the universe, and then before that is a God, and before that's a God, and before that is a God, and before that is a God.
Well, my friend, the sense of creation is different. You can paint a painting, but you yourself were not painted like the painting. You were created in a different sense. In the same way, the imagination of a God could exist is very, very fundamentally different, as different it is for you to exist than the painting you painted. It's just a completely different sense.
Yeah, but then if you're using the word created in a different sense, then you're pretty point blank equivocating on the term. When you say that everything needs to be created, it sounds like you're rubbing like sandpaper against the microphone. Please stop. If you're saying that in order for something to be created, or in order for something to exist, it needs to be created, but you're saying it's like a different sense of created when we speak about God, but you would say God still needs to be created.
Yes, I mean, in our sense of reality, yes, we need something to create us, because the painting needs something to create it. But if something is outside of our reality, it doesn't apply the same rules on it. The creator of the rules doesn't have the same rules.
So you wouldn't, so God himself does not need to be created. Well, then you just straightforwardly wouldn't accept the principle that everything that exists needs to be created. So why would I?
In our sense, it needs to, in our world, in our sense of existence, yes.
Why? What's the argument?
For a creature outside of our existence, no.
Why? What's the argument to think that everything in our universe needs to be created?
Because we physically detect that we cannot create something out of nothing.
How do we physically? Well, I agree we can't create something out of nothing, but why wouldn't I think, for example, that the universe always existed?
Well, first, physically, I mean scientifically, most scientists believe that it had a beginning, and
most scientists don't believe that. According to this recent survey of physicists, Look at that, 68% column. 68% of scientists hold that the Big Bang is a theory that says that the universe evolved from a hot, dense state. That says nothing about whether there was an absolute beginning of time or not. It doesn't make that claim.
Well, yeah, then then Aristotle, he had an argument. I think he pointed at a chair, and he said it comes originally out of either one being to create it. I mean, if you're gonna keep asking for a higher up to give permission for something to exist, it will never exist, and we do exist.
Yeah, you don't want to make the you don't want to appeal to Aristotle on this. Aristotle actually thought that the universe always existed for two reasons. The first reason why he thought that the universe always existed is because he believed that the present sits at the intersection of the past and the future, which means that every present moment has a past moment and a future moment. So if ever there was a first moment of time, there would be a past to that first moment of time, which means that there would be time before time, which is a contradiction. The other reason why he thinks that the universe always exists is that because, if the universe was unchanging, then it would be unable to act, or if time didn't exist, then the world would be unchanging, and then it wouldn't be able to change into a state where change exists. So, we have Aristotle kind of like famously believed that the universe always existed.
Well, we both know that Aristotle is an ancient Greek philosopher.
I'm sorry for
his
bringing
words
him
are
up.
not.
That's my bad.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the argument I said is what I was talking about. However, I'm not claiming to know the full thing about time, because I'm claiming you don't. And realistically, you cannot say that time was infinite by the laws of nature, or that we cannot detect something like that, at least in our minds. So both ways, it's something that we cannot detect. The argument that God exists and then he must be in time, as you said, actually is a good argument. When you said that was the other guy that you're talking to, I thought of in Islam and the Quran, usually it describes like future things as past. I mean, hell things and heaven, and literally everything mentioned is usually in the past. So that's usually perceived as the fact that for God, time does not work the same way it does for humans. Yes,
Okay.
everything might have already happened for him in a way, in a sense that I'm claiming I don't understand, but I'm claiming you don't too.
So I guess maybe we could do this. I could just give you the argument that the universe has always existed, or that time has always existed. So premise 1, if change exists, then time exists. Premise 2, change always existed, therefore time always existed. Of those two, which would you reject, 1 or 2?
I would reject that that this is the full sense. I mean, for us, yes, the change have existed since the beginning of the universe. But I'm saying it does not apply on God. What I'm saying is, before and now, that the rules you're trying to apply on the divine being that created the universe and created the rules does not apply on the creator of the rules. That's what I'm saying.
That's great, but you might notice that my argument makes no mention of God. My argument was just premise 1, if time exists, then change, or if change exists, then time exists. Premise 2, change always existed. The word God doesn't appear in any of that. I'm not trying to place rules on God. What I'm demonstrating is that time must have always existed.
Well, yes, my friend, but if I said that if time exists, then change exists, you will try to apply that on God. Then yes, I'm saying if time exists, then change exists, but this rule does not apply on God. I'm not saying that even time exists for God in the sense we perceive it as humans. Can you prove otherwise that it's not possible?
I'm a bit worried that you're not actually going to engage with the argument. Maybe what I'll need to do is put the argument on screen, and then maybe that'll help us make some progress here. So the argument is, the argument is premise 1, if change exists, then time exists. Premise 2, change always exists. Therefore, time always existed.
Yes, I'm saying if
You
change
need to
exists,
you need to disagree
I
with
mean,
one
if
of
time
these
exists,
two, otherwise the conclusion just follows.
right, the correct one that I'm agreeing with is that if time exists, then change exists.
That's not the premise. The premise is if change exists, then time exists.
Well, time is a definition of time is like the separation of the events. So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and change requires events. A change is literally going from one event to another.
Yes, what I'm saying is this rule.
This literally proves my point. Like that would actually demonstrate that change always existed, because if ever there was, a state where change didn't exist, in order for it to change into a state where change does exist, well, the changeless state would need to be an event, which means that it would be on the timeline. So you'd have time before time again, another contradiction.
Well, my friend, I'm agreeing with this fact. I'm agreeing with it. It is what happens, but it happens in our sense of reality. Again, that's
which premise do you reject here? You either need to reject premise 1 or premise 2.
I reject that time is infinite, and
that's the conclusion.
That time have always existed.
That's the conclusion. You need to reject a premise to avoid the conclusion. If you don't reject either premise 1 or premise 2, then it's just going to be true that time always existed.
Well, I'm saying again that in our sense. Wait.
I can highlight the options of things that you can reject. You can reject 1, that if change exists, then time exists, or you can reject 2, that change always existed.
Change always existed means time always existed. It's just the same thing as above. It's a conclusion of the above.
What? I mean, I totally agree that if change always existed, then it does follow that time always existed. But no, these are indeed different premises.
Well, my friend, I'm saying that in our sense of reality, it always existed. Time always existed.
Oh, cool. Well, that just seems like you would agree then that there's an infinite regress of time. That was kind of the thing that you were saying, like, well, we can't prove one way or the other, but then you just agree with the conclusion.
Well, I said that in our sense of reality, time has always existed, but I'm saying that does not apply in God. You have repeatedly, mentioned the same argument in our sense of reality. I'm talking in God's reality.
Yeah, well, I mean, does God disagree that time always existed?
I'm not saying that. I'm claiming that I do not know, but I'm claiming that our sense of reality is not the only possibility of existence. There are certainly things that are far beyond our understanding, even if you yourself would not say that you claim to know how the universe existed. So it's the same idea.
I just claim that it did exist. Yeah, that's my claim. So
well,
I guess to make this go a bit quicker, do you think God was always creating, or do you think he was not always creating?
I think the sense of change for God is different.
What question did I just ask you?
What?
What question did I just ask you?
You asked me, do you think God is always creating, or he is not always creating?
Yeah, and then your answer to that was, well, the sense of change in God is different than the sense of change to us. That didn't answer the question.
Yes,
the question is just,
is
which one was it? Do you think that God was always creating, or do you think at some point he begins to create? He goes from not creating to creating. Which one?
My friend, do you think you open a door with your
We're not going to get an answer
mouth
to that.
or with your leg?
We're not going to get an answer to that. It's a true dichotomy, by the way. Like, there is no third option. Either he was or he wasn't.
I'm just saying what you're saying doesn't make sense.
It makes perfect sense. Either he was or he wasn't.
I'm asking you a question.
You know,
I'm
either the
asking you a
sky is
question right
blue
now.
or it isn't. Either 2 + 2 is 4 or it's not.
No, those two things do not contradict with each other.
You're
They're
sorry.
not the only two possible things.
Yeah, what's the third
It's not
possibility?
either the,
Yeah, so I have
there was
I have
what I'm saying.
let me type this out. Okay, so I have you know, the thing is true. The thing is not true. What's the third option here?
My friend, it's like you're asking me whether the door is open or it's not open. I'm telling you
What's the third
that
option?
the third option is that the sense of time or events does not apply in God in the way you
Okay.
perceive it.
Okay. I'm not really sure what the third option here would be.
Well, my friend,
is the third option that
it's
you don't
like
like the question?
no, the thing.
So
You can write that if you want.
I guess maybe to make this debate a bit quicker, you know, to save us all some time. So point blank, you would just reject the law of logic that's known as the law of excluded middle that states that either a proposition is true or it's not true. You think that that's false?
This an example of this thing is whether a door is open or it's not open.
Yes.
Right?
Correct. Either the
I'm
door is
telling
open
you-
or it's not open. Yeah.
I'm telling you, there is no door. It's a completely
Sure.
different rule.
Then you would just
There is not
reject the
a door.
presupposition there. So the only presuppositions in my question are that God exists and that he created. So if you reject that God exists, well then trivially God isn't real. And if you reject that God
Can you-
created, then trivially God isn't real.
Can we answer this in the door example? Because it's a bit clearer. I'm telling you, there isn't a door.
Mhm,
You're
yep.
telling me it's whether open or not open. I'm telling you,
Yes.
there is not
Yes,
a
you're
door.
rejecting a presupposition. Yes. So the only presuppositions, I just explained this to you. I'll explain it a second time. The only presuppositions that are present in my question are that God exists and that he created. If you agree that God exists and that he created, then there are no problematic presuppositions in the question.
God has existed in a sense that is different. Let's just end this here because this
Okay.
isn't making sense. The
Okay.
other thing is your live stream right here. I mean, I myself, I do not actually believe in a religion. The thing is, for me, I
Mhm.
cannot prove that God doesn't exist. This is the thing. That I mean, if I could prove that, that would be, you know, I don't mind. That would be a thing.
I think you would
But I'm
mind. I mean, I
saying-
proved it to you, and then, you know, you were like, well, no, like things don't make sense when you talk about God. No.
I'm saying that I do not know the way it works.
Yep.
I'm saying that you do not too.
Oh, no, I do.
You do realize the senses
I know
that
two
we
things.
do not understand.
No, I just know two things, that change always existed, and that if change exists, then time exists, which means that time is not created. What I do know is that, you know, the laws of logic are true. Now, you have to reject a law of logic in order to hold the position that you've expressed that you hold. I'm not willing to reject logic. I mean, maybe you are.
Well, I'm not gonna say the exact same, like the exact same thing again. We said this like 4 times now. I'm not gonna repeat it. I would still say the same thing. So let's not repeat that.
Okay, that's fine. Do you have anything else?
Yeah. First, for me, I don't even believe in religion, as I said. As I said, I cannot prove one either. But the idea of religion is not actually that bad. I mean, yes, it might have had issues over time, but at least if you view the messengers, they were people giving actual morality to the world, and you know that sometimes was not very helpful to them. So the idea is, even if now is perceived in different ways, this argument you're doing here is immoral because it's just proving to society something that is not improving it. The idea that God isn't real, whether it's right or not, it's
Why is
not
it
gonna improve.
immoral? Why is it immoral to say true things? You think saying true things is sometimes immoral?
Well, yeah, if they are actually hurting the majority of humans, then yeah.
Sure. Yeah, if it like disrupts people's cope, then you think it's immoral to say a true thing?
Exactly, that's the thing. I
Okay.
myself, I do not believe in religion, and I find it very immoral to go fight with random people that literally have their beliefs from families, from generations and generations. They are just listening to this and thinking, you're an idiot, you don't know anything, I don't know anything, and we're simply sinners, and we're just arguing with poor people that literally we're wasting time here. If you're actually debating for something useful, for an idea that is important.
If it's a waste of time, then leave.
Well, my friend, I'm not saying that it's a waste of time for me. I'm saying it's immoral to try to prove to society that God doesn't exist when you don't have another sense of morality. If God doesn't exist, morality falls. That's what I'm saying.
Believing true things is good, actually. I think that everybody should try to believe true things. If your moral system includes the fact that, you know, people should believe false things, you know, whatever helps people cope, I think that that's a really bleak view of the world, that you think that what matters more than believing things that are true is making sure that people's cope doesn't go undisturbed.
It's not just their code, it's the entire system of morality for humans. It's built on the existence of a divine being that will,
No, it's not.
you know,
It's built on liberalism, which, as pioneered by people like Immanuel Kant, is meant to have nothing to do with God. The foundation of all of the things that we enjoy about society, the fact that, you know, we generally believe that people should have the freedom to do what they want as long as it doesn't interfere with other people, goes directly back to people like Immanuel Kant and his analysis of the categorical imperative, and it had nothing to do with God.
well, this sense of morality only exists if you're paying, if you need it. If you don't need it, then no. If you can steal and you're fully safe, then it's like physically, materialistically better for you to do so. There is not a reason for you not to.
There is a reason. The reason why you
Which
shouldn't
is?
steal is because in virtue of stealing, you're claiming a right to have the possession that you steal, but then you would need to deny that same right to somebody who doesn't differ from you in any way, shape, or form. If everybody did the thing that you think is okay, then your conditions would be way worse because everybody would be stealing from you. You couldn't even hold on to the things that you stole. It would be defeating to the purpose that you yourself are trying to pursue.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm not trying
Then there
to
is a
make
reason to not do it.
No, I'm not trying to make the entire society do it. But if I personally do it, or if you personally do it, we both know you will just walk out winning. You will not change the society by your action.
If it's okay for you to do it, then it must be okay for everybody else to do it too, insofar as there's no identifiable difference between you and them, which means that if it's okay for you to steal from people, then it's okay for people to steal from you, which means that you never actually get to enjoy any of the things that you steal.
Yes, it's okay for them to do, but they do not.
Yep.
That's the argument.
Well, surely, I mean, if you live in a society where everybody just goes around stealing, I mean, if you steal willy-nilly without getting punished, then everybody else is going to start stealing willy-nilly without getting punished. And you do have a
No, in
reason
our
to not have
society here.
that. Yeah.
I'm talking about our society.
Yeah.
Some
Well,
people
if you're talking
steal,
about our
some
society,
people
then you're
don't.
going to go to jail. You know, that's going to
Well, I'm saying
massively
if you are
decrease
safe,
your quality. Wait, so are you talking about our society,
my
or is it just a
morality stand?
hypothetical?
I mean, does my morality stand where what sends me to jail and not? Does my morality stand with punishment?
You're asking, like, what
or
sort
does
of
it-
reason do you have to do these things based on living in our society? Well, in our society, we have a prison system. If you steal, you'll be sent to jail. That's the reason.
Yeah, but what if I'm safe? The system isn't perfect, and you
Yeah,
know
but
it.
what if you go to jail? It's a question of risk versus reward. You risk a whole awful lot to go about this stealing, when in fact,
Exactly. So
actually
my
the
entire
probability is that
morality,
you shouldn't do it because you have way more to lose, and it's also like quite likely in this age of surveillance that you will.
what I'm saying is my morality does not stand on what is going. There is not a morality for it if it stands on what rewards you. That's what I'm saying. My friend, the argument
That's
with
very
you is
ironic,
not.
speaking from the position of like
Well,
you
it's
know, the
so
God that
ironic.
gives people like heaven and hell. You know, clearly people do think that morality is tied to things like rewards and punishments. They think that the reason to listen to God is because he's going to torture you if you don't. Like, clearly these people are totally fine with accepting that. Hello? Masks, I think you ripped your router out of the wall. Okay. Well, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, and all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. And with that, let's read some supers. Draxel, official, thanks so much for the super chat. What kind of meta ethics do you adhere to? Thanks. The view that I hold to is specifically called constructivism, which just holds that the moral facts are constructed out of laws of logic, that there's like certain necessary laws of logic that necessitate certain like necessary commitments to specific like moral obligations in order to coherently understand yourself as an agent. So basically, like in virtue of being an agent, I need to presuppose specific things, and in virtue of presupposing these things without contradicting myself, I would need to arrive at specific obligations. There's a Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy article on it too. Plato.stanford.edu. I think it's just called constructivism. Yep, constructivism and metaethics. What do we got? Okay. Whoa. Dairy Fiend, thanks so much for the $10. Kant mentioned? Yep. I love Kant. I'm a Kant fan. My ops can't stop me. I'm unstoppable. They can't topple me. I'm untoppleable. Yeah, I love Kant. I think that Kant gets the framing of ethics just right. Andrew, thanks so much for the super chat. The $50 super chat too. That's incredible. Let's get a big W for Andrew. I really appreciate that, Andrew. I wouldn't be able to do the stream that I do without the very generous support of folks like you. I don't know. You allow me to get all the equipment that I need, be it all these tablets that I'm trying out to see what's the perfect like note-taking tablet for me. I don't know. Like I seriously couldn't do that without you. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much. But also, speaking of Kant, if you want to learn about philosophy, people like Kant, but you're not really sure where to get started, we're doing a reading group in the Discord. It's discord.gg/allegedlyian. We're reading Michael Huemer's Knowledge, Reality, and Value. This week, we're reading about utilitarianism, which is chapter 14. It's 8 p.m. EST tomorrow night. I'd love to see all of you there. It's on Audible. You don't need to read any of the other chapters. All you need to do is be there at the correct time, and I would love to see all of you. And next week, we're, Kant is obviously not a consequentialist, but next week, it's deontology, which is like, the Kant stuff. So anyway, if you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. The Discord is discord.gg/allegedlyian. I don't know if I said this already, but you got to be 18 or older. You got to believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. And with that, we'll go to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't request to join. My bad.
Okay, that's okay. Happens to the best of us. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well. How old are you?
21.
And what religion?
Jesus Christ.
Okay. What makes you think God exists?
I just personally don't think anything in this world would be possible without Jesus Christ.
Why?
So say you do something, right? If there's something that you've done, there has to be an external point to what you're doing, correct?
And I would agree for like rational actions, like all rational actions are going to be directed towards something. But if you're saying like,
Oh,
are all actions intentional? I think you can take like unintentional actions, you can slip and
no,
fall.
I agree.
I don't think
I
that,
agree. I agree.
are you just
I
saying
agree.
like
But what I'm
everything is
saying,
like caused?
what I'm saying is, if you water a plant, what is the main goal?
Probably like plant growth.
But why is who is allowing that plant to grow? Say you have a plant in your house on your counter. Who is allowing that plant to grow?
By allowing, are you saying like not preventing it from growing, or are you asking like
Correct.
what causes it to grow?
Correct.
Well, lots of things
Correct.
are not preventing it from growing. Like, theoretically, I could break into your house and like tear your fucking plant to pieces. So in that sense,
Correct.
I'm allowing your plant to grow. I guess like in some sense, a whole bunch of things are allowing your plant to grow by not interfering with it.
Okay,
but
if we're not speaking theoretically, what would allow that plant to grow?
I think that all
Sunlight?
the things that are not interfering with it are going to be theoretical scenarios. I think you're going to probably need to refine your question. Are you asking what causes the plant to grow?
No, I'm saying, why do you water a plant? For it to grow, correct?
Yeah, I mean, person to person, it's going to depend. But yeah, generally it's for it to grow, yeah.
Okay. Person to person, that's fine. I mean,
yeah, I totally
but
agree. Like generally
you-
it's for the plant to grow, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the reason you do that is for a better outcome, correct?
Yeah, like a more
The
desirable
what-
one, yeah.
Exactly. So basically what I'm trying to get to is at one point somewhere, okay, and I've been on the cusp of there being, because there's so many different beliefs in a God. I do believe in Christianity, but I'm also not afraid to admit that I've also possibly had the thought that we could all be talking about the same God with what, whether it's, this person's belief or this person's belief of whichever God they believe, we could all be talking about the same person, because in order for anything to happen, there has to be an action, correct?
By action, do you mean like a personal action, or do you just mean like there needs to
No,
be like
not
an
a personal
event?
action, but just like a general action.
You mean like an event?
Correct.
Like I would agree that everything that happens is an event. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, sorry. I'll finish my thought. But I'll circle back to it. The reason I'm saying that is there has to be a creator that took action in order for anything that you walk and see. That there has to be a creator. So, what makes you think that there isn't a creator? Like this
Yeah.
just happened out of nowhere?
Yeah, it's because, if God acted to bring the world into existence, then that would be a happening. God's action would have happened. But if something happens, then it's an event. And if something is an event, then it's in time, which means that if God took an action, then his action would have to be in time. So God would have to be in time, which means that God can't possibly create time because all of his actions are within time.
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Okay. I think there's definitely different levels to it. As far as we can see, Jesus Christ and God and things like that. I do believe that there's a level even above them. Maybe it's not even like a spiritual level above them, or even like any type of living, or they're just, in order for anything to happen, there has to be. I just can't circle my head around the fact that everything just happened. When you break it down to atoms and everything's moving and working together to
Do you
create
think
and produce
God
the
created
life that you
time?
see. I wouldn't say he created time.
So
no.
then he didn't create space either, because space is a part of space-time.
Okay. So
And then at that
when you're
point, he
saying-
didn't create
when
the
you're
universe.
saying space, when you're saying space, define what space you're talking about.
Are you serious? Like, you don't know what space is? I mean, I
Like,
guess
are
I
you
could, right?
Are you
like,
talking about outer space? Or are you
yeah,
talking
it's like
about space
the
between
it's
a
like the dimension along which one object can, or it's like the dimensions along which like one object can exist at a moment.
Okay. Well, if you're going based off that, I just don't. I don't see how that makes sense.
You don't like the definition of space?
No, I'm saying that like you're comparing space and time.
Well, space is connected to time. These things are inseparable, or at least that's what our best physics, things like gravity, that's what they tell us.
Okay, so but the thing is, if you're listening to someone telling you something, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Then when someone says, you know, God is real or something, what makes you not believe them?
Yeah, because general relativity is something that you can replicate in a lab. Also, the specific sort of thing that I'm picking out here, factors like time dilation, the inseparable connection between space and time are things that can literally be determined a priori, literally just with the Pythagorean theorem, for example. So there's tons and tons of evidence for general relativity, tons of evidence that I myself am capable of replicating. And then I have no evidence for God's existence.
I mean, I got you. I mean, I completely understand where you're coming from on your beliefs. You know, I'll never tell you not to believe what you believe in. But whether, I mean, I've watched you for a little bit now. I just wonder if, is it just God that you do not believe in, or not God, but a God? Like, do you believe in, like, you know, the paranormal or spiritual, anything?
Not really. I don't see a reason to believe in those.
Like, at all?
Yeah, like at all. I don't really see a reason. I mean, you can present me like evidence to believe in the paranormal, and then, you know, maybe I will. But I mean, we have good reason to think that that's not the case, insofar as any of these paranormal things would disprove the laws of physics. You know, if sometimes ghosts cause things to happen, or they produce like some sort of like visual field, you know, they emit light, well, fuck, then our laws of physics are all like completely wrong. So it just seems like we have really good reason to think that our laws of physics, even if they need some adjustments to them, are not completely wrong.
Okay, so let me ask you something. What do you think, to your best of knowledge, happens after death?
I think probably it's something like before you were born. You know, before you were born, there was no like display. There
Like
was
a
no
state of non-existence.
experience. Yeah, like a state of non-existence. I think after you die, you no longer exist, basically.
Now, I don't have too much information on this exactly, but I did hear something about there was a study that studied the weight loss as a person crosses over, or in your case, goes to a state of non-existence, that it measures to the exact same amount, almost like the spirit has a certain weight to it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought this up. There's a great section on the Wikipedia page for this exact article that I think is really worth looking into. So, this is titled the 21 grams experiment. It was published in 1907 by a physician named Duncan McDougall. So the paragraph that I find quite compelling, McDougall's experiments have been rejected by the scientific community, and he has been accused of both flawed methods and outright fraud in obtaining his results.
Now, is he the only one that has attempted to perform, or said that they attempt to perform this experiment?
It's interesting. Apparently there are other experiments, similar experiments we can read through. In December 2001, physicist Louis E. Hollander published in the Journal of Scientific Exploration, where he exhibited the results of a similar experiment. He tested the weight of 1 ram, 7 ewes. Is it pronounced ewes? I hope it is. 3 lambs and 1 goat at the moment of death, seeking to explore upon McDougall's purported findings. His experiment showed that 7 of the adult sheeps varied their weight upon dying, though not losing it, but rather gaining an amount of 18 to 780 grams, which was lost again over time until returning to their initial weight. In 2009, Hollander Jr.'s experiment was subjected to critical review by Masayoshi Ishida in the same journal. Ishida found Hollander's statements of a transient gain of weight was not an appropriate expression of the experimental result, though he admitted the cause of the force event remains to be explained. He also warned about possible malfunctions of the weighing platform in the 2 cases. Similarly inspired by McDougall's research, physician Gerard Nahum proposed in 2005 a follow-up experiment based on utilizing an array of electromagnetic detectors to try to pick up on any type of escaping energy at the moment of death. He offered to sell his idea to engineering, physics, and philosophy departments at Yale, Stanford, Duke University, as well as the Catholic Church, but he was rejected. Okay, so sounds like every time somebody has tried to replicate the experiment, it's turned out that there's nothing there.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with it. It's just something that I've heard. It's not something that I am so strong about. But anyways, to move on from that, I wanted to ask you, if you were on the other side, like you believed in God, correct? Just theoretically.
Sure.
What would be the closest evidence that you would say could possibly be just the closest to be able to prove something like that?
I mean, that kind of seems like respectfully your job. You know, it's your job to defend that position. It kind of feels like you're asking me to make your argument for you.
No, correct. I just wonder what your standpoint is, so that way I can attack that standpoint.
You're asking like what the most compelling evidence that I think exists for God?
Yes.
Okay. Well, some interesting evidence. I think that the nature of like qualitative experience is quite strange. You know, the fact that there's like a what it's like, a qualitative experience of seeing blue, and that the qualitative experience of seeing blue differs from the qualitative experience of seeing green or red. I mean, that's certainly strange. If things reduce to atoms, it's not clear how atoms produce things such as that. So maybe that would be evidence for a soul, and then maybe the best explanation for a soul would be something like a God. But I mean, you kind of keep the problem. The problem still persists, is that it's not clear how the soul produces these experiences or how the soul interacts with the brain. So, you know, I think that there's some stuff in like philosophy of mind that's quite strange. But nevertheless, I don't think that these are successful reasons to think that God exists.
I got you. So your standpoint basically is you just have never had enough evidence to be able to make a clear decision that this is for sure a real thing. This is for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. So what about just to tie into that kind of, what about like natural phenomenons? What is your opinion on those?
Natural phenomena?
Yes.
Real? Like, I don't know. There's lots of natural phenomena. You're probably going to be more specific.
Okay, let me think of one. How do I explain this?
Oop, he left. What the fuck? Why did he leave? The fuck just happened? Okay. Hunter ripped his router out of the wall. Total Hunter death. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. As we go to the very next guest. Let's get him on up in there. That was quite the natural phenomena indeed. Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Yeah, how old
How are you?
I'm doing really well.
I'm 22.
Yep. What religion are you?
I would say Christian.
Okay. What makes you think God exists?
All right. Okay. So basically, what I would say is, all right. I don't know where to start, but what I'm gonna start with is, okay, if you were in a field, okay, and you saw a fence in a field, standing there in the field,
yeah,
would you or would you not assume that someone has put that fence there at some point in time?
I would assume that somebody put that fence there at some point in time, insofar as I know where fences come from.
Okay. Now, another thing I would ask you is, if you saw a painting, okay, you saw a beautiful painting on the wall, would you assume that that painting has an artist?
Yeah, I would assume that a painting is a painter, insofar as I know where paintings come from. You know, paintings only come from painters. You know, fences only come from, I don't know, humans. So yeah, I would assume that all of these things are produced by the relevant sort of thing that produces them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Now, what I would say as an argument, okay, to prove that God is real, okay, I would say that our perception of the world, and from what I've gathered from the world, this is 100% intelligent design.
Why?
Okay?
What makes you think so?
All right. So you think everything that's happened in this world, okay? You think the Big Bang has just made it all convenient for life to just form in the way it's formed.
It's not convenient for life to form. Have you looked around our universe? The vast majority of our universe is completely devoid of life. In fact, we're the only planet that we even know of. It's not easy for life to form at all.
Okay, but that's within. Let me put it down. Let me put it this way to you, okay?
Please.
Let's put it this way, okay? All right. So you have a neighbor, okay?
Okay, I have a neighbor.
All right.
Yep.
And for some reason, okay, this is within a world where God exists, but for some reason, he's able to make life, okay?
Your neighbor can make life. Okay, sure.
Yeah. Now, the life that he can make exists on a 2D plane, okay? So they can't perceive the 3D plane, okay? So what he's making can't perceive him, okay? So the life that he's made can't perceive him, all right?
Okay.
So in a world where your neighbor has then created that life form, is he now God to those life forms?
I take God specifically to be a personal ultimate foundation, so there can only be one of those. You might want to say that he's like the creator. That's not really what I mean when I say God exists or God doesn't exist.
Okay,
no,
exactly.
I don't think so.
I get so you've agreed with my point because that's also what I believe. Okay, so now what I want to say to what your answer was let's make that neighbor. Let's take away everything else. There's no other God. He is now the ultimate. He's the final. He's the be all and the end all. Okay,
sure.
And he's created those life forms on that 2D plane that can't perceive them, okay? So take away the rest.
Yeah.
All right? The point I'm trying to make is that there's the creator and there's the created, and the created is to the created, God is imperceivable, okay?
Yeah.
God is imperceivable. And that's something that atheists and people of faith can both agree on. Okay?
Yeah, sure. If God exists, that he's imperceivable, I agree.
He's imperceivable. So how do you come to the conclusion that God exists? Okay,
that is the question. Yeah.
So this is why people of faith come to the conclusion that God exists. Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Faith. Okay. So everyone wants to talk about belief in God. Okay. Now, the way you believe that your mom exists is not the way that you believe in God, okay? The reason you believe in God is due to the fact you have faith in God.
Oh,
due to your
God damn it.
Listen.
Sorry, I thought you said fate. Okay.
Yes, so the reason you believe in God is because you have faith in God.
Change your faith, would you? Okay, sure.
No, you have faith in God due to your perception of your surroundings.
Okay.
Okay, due to how you've perceived the world to come about. Okay, so now I'm going to bring you back to
let's stick with faith for a second. Do you think like faith gives you justification in the things that you believe? Like if you have faith in something, are you then justified in believing that it's true?
Listen, you're not listening to what I'm saying. Okay, I do apologies. I'm not meaning to come across that way.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I just haven't got to my point. I'm gonna get to there and then we can debate it.
Yeah, that's fine.
What I'm saying is, if I'm perceiving in my life that in every instant there's been a creator to everything I've interacted with. I'm sitting in my house now. I see a door, I see a wall. Everything has a creator, okay? Now I'm living on a plane. I'm living on a plane with trees, with the grass, everything has to have a creator. So then I take the knowledge of that and then have faith in a creator. And he's imperceivable, so it's not the job. Like also the logic of if I were to be on a 2D plane, I would not be able to perceive anything on a 3D plane. That's also a logical understanding that the only way God can exist is if I have faith in the fact that he exists,
Gosh,
and
I feel like I'm waiting to get to
he's
the
imperceivable.
destination. I'm like waiting to get to the destination. You know, we're like driving along together, and it's like, you know, I'm in Ireland in like, you know, like the 1960s.
Oh, brother. Go ahead. Okay. But he's imperceivable. So
Okay.
all you can do is go off your perception of reality and how things go. And how things go is every painting has a painter. That's how things go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
go ahead.
But then wouldn't I then infer like God is a creator too?
He has no. Well, then that's what I'm saying in terms of the planes. Okay. So he's on in a completely different plane, in which that's where the argument comes in. Whereas it's not that he would have a creator. We would not be able to listen. Okay, listen. You saying that God has a creator, that's not the God we're referring to. We're referring to the be all and the end all.
Okay, sure. But then if everything needs a creator, then that too would need a creator. So there couldn't be a be all and end all if everything needs a creator. So surely some things don't need a creator. Why not cut it off at the universe?
So when you say everything needs a creator, you are still trying to perceive the creator.
That's what you said.
But the argument is, yes, so what I'm saying is based off my perception of my reality, I'm saying that there is a creator. So having a creator and saying everything needs a creator is different. Okay? Now, that's where the argument is, that's why I said my neighbor created these 2D planes. Like, we can go further than that, but you need to stop it somewhere. Okay?
Yeah.
It needs to stop somewhere.
Totally
and there
agree.
is a creator. Okay? Now, that creator, we're giving him the trait of being the be all and the end all.
Sure, but why not just think that that's the universe? Like the universe is the uncreated thing.
Because there's intelligence behind it.
Why? Why would I think that?
Why would you think that? Okay. Now,
no.
Even within abstract painting, you can have a perfectly designed painting and you can have an abstract painting. Even within abstract painting, you perceive it and you find the beauty within it. Okay.
Yeah, but what about all the ugliness? Do you think all the ugliness is evidence against God's existence?
All the that you're knocking me off my point. What I'm telling you is within that perception of that abstract painting, yeah, regardless of what way it's formed and the fact that it doesn't look intricate in anything, you still know there's a creator that has made that happen. Okay? Someone has made that happen.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. So
you get what I'm saying?
Okay. Maybe I just need to make this point like a bit more clearly. So if you're saying that the beauty in the universe is evidence that it was intelligently designed, then that means that all the things that are not beautiful would be evidence against it being intelligently designed. You know,
okay.
For example, you're going to be committed to the absurd position, the crazy position, you know, that, for example, like PMARS is evidence against God's existence.
What's that? Sorry,
PMARS?
What's that?
You don't know PMARS?
No.
I can pull up a picture.
Okay. What is it though?
He's like a person.
And he's done something bad.
Extremely bad.
Okay, but listen, that's why free will. Free will.
Yeah.
So now within that painting that I make, okay, yeah, there's no element of free will within that painting. Now, if within that painting I left paint splatters all over it that continuously dripped, that I had no control of, but I put them there initially, okay, how would it be my fault if that then made a beautiful painting in the end, or if it then made horrors of the original picture? Okay, what I'm saying is the creation itself. You're dictating the creator by the creation, the actions of the creation, whereas the creator creates with no predetermined ways in which everything will unfold. He's created and he's given free will. There's another element
So
to
he's
that
not
painting.
all-knowing?
He's not. So when they say all-knowing, if all-knowing doesn't mean that he, within his all-knowingness, he's going to control that. Now, I may have a friend that I know everything. I have a friend I grew up with. I know what he's going to do before he says it.
But it
We
is
have a good
predetermined,
relationship.
right? Like God knew what would happen if he created the world, and then he creates the world. So God makes the decision for all of these things to happen because he knew what would happen if he did it, and then he did it. So
Okay.
you may choose
But
to
then
do
that
specific
argument
things,
can also
but
be
God
said in the
chooses
opposite.
for you to do these specific things.
But that can also be said in the opposite way. Okay, God knew there was going to be so much beauty and so much love and so much everything. So he made it regardless of the fact of there's going to be bad done in the world. That
Why
can be
wouldn't he
said in
make it
both ways.
prettier?
Why would he make it prettier? Because that would
Yeah.
be taking away free will.
Why
Why would
would
he take
God
away
giving
free
me
will?
why would God making me hotter take away free will?
Because you're already hot.
But I want to be even hotter. You know,
No, but listen,
let me if
again,
you
we're
just
going.
refer to like
You've
the
dragged.
incel chart, you know, you'll see that I'm right here at the one that's labeled LTN, and I'm trying to get to the
And you know
one that's
what? Yeah,
labeled like
and
HTN,
I
and I think
completely,
it's like pretty fucked up that God
You know
wouldn't do
what? Yeah,
that.
you
Yeah.
know what? I
Mhm.
completely understand you because I feel the same way. And the thing is, what I derive from that, in a world of individuality, yeah,
Mhm.
you actually wouldn't be yourself if it wasn't for all those determining factors about yourself. Okay, like your eyes could be a different color and you'd be a completely different person. That's what I believe. Okay, so really and truly, your incapability of understanding, which I also have and everyone has, that your perception is based also off your physical, and then you would never get rid of your perception of the world because then you wouldn't be you. So you would actually never get rid of yourself. So that you failing to understand that is like making you think, oh, why did God put me this way? But really and truly, I think if the way your physical body was perceived and it was perceived well by everyone, by society, you would not have an issue with yourself. But then if your physical body was more attractive and different, your perception of yourself would be different, in which you would not be yourself.
Okay.
So
you're saying like if I was like a person,
if I took you,
if instead like throughout my life I like wore hats frequently, you're saying that I would be like a different person?
No, I'm saying if I took you out of your, like, you could say now you have an issue with yourself because of the society we live in. If I took you out of this society and put you in a different society and and everyone loved you in that society, you would be the same person and you would enjoy it then and you wouldn't blame God for it. But whereas if I change your looks, your perception of who you are changes and you become a different person. Okay, but look, you're pulling me into semantics.
Sacrifice that's worth making, right? You know,
Listen, you're pulling me
surely like 4 out of 10 Ian needs to get obliterated such that 8 out of 10 Ian can rise.
Yes, but you also would not choose that option.
I would in a heartbeat.
Listen, you wouldn't choose that option.
It's worth it.
If you understood who you are, not who you are, but what makes you, because you would not be. You wouldn't.
Better than that.
When I say you wouldn't be yourself, when I say you wouldn't be yourself, you wouldn't actually exist. Like the current you right now would not exist. So it's like Rick and Morty. It's like Rick and Morty when they die, and there's another Rick and Morty that takes their place. They're dead, but they're cloned within. You get me? Stop. You're gonna laugh, but look, you pulled me into semantics, whereas I'm telling you something right now. Okay, you put me into semantics. You cannot perceive God. So all this debating that you're doing, at the end of the day, it's actually because it's fleeting. It doesn't make any, like, as humans, the whole point in believing in God is understanding that he is above us. He's above our understanding. He's all this, he's all this. And then you can debate, you can say, oh, he's all knowing. Why would he do this? Why would he do that?
I will.
You
Yeah,
don't
I
you
would.
don't question that. You don't.
No,
You
I
need to
do.
you as an inferior being, you don't question it,
No, I
and you
do.
have faith in it. Okay.
No, I
Now,
definitely
but
do
that's what I'm
question it.
saying. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're never gonna get the answers to what you're questioning. Do you get
Oh,
me?
well, why wouldn't God
So,
give like the answers then? Why wouldn't he come down here and just explain to me his like reasons for decisions?
and that's another question that you get me, that it's you're continuously questioning something that we all know that we can't we just can't perceive God. We
But couldn't
can't
God
perceive
put
him.
like a little sticky note on my desk and say, you know, the reason why this earthquake happened is because we needed to kill like fucking like Chinese Hitler?
Listen, yeah. If you want to continuously perceive God, look, I'm telling you right now, like, you can like, if I right now, yeah, if I created life and they lived on a 2D plane, there's no way imaginable that they could perceive me.
But
Okay.
couldn't you just create them in such a way where they could? Also, don't you believe that Jesus came down as the incarnation and he was perceived by like lots of people?
Okay. So now that's an entirely different thing, because Jesus came down with a purpose. Okay. He came down with a purpose in order to be perceived, and to show the light, and to show the way, and to show how to behave amongst each other. That's where we derive our morals from. That's where so he's come down into our
So God is
plane
hiding.
of existence. Go ahead.
Like currently God is hiding.
He's not hiding. Okay. So
But
you
you're saying
want to
that
put
he's made it not his purpose to be seen.
Okay, so originally, okay. Now you actually, okay, now let me put it this way, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, if Jesus came back today, yeah, and he showed you the right and the wrong and all this, and he said he was Jesus, maybe the effects of belief in him would not be as potent as it is, because it's been so long ago. Like,
sure. I mean, I'm sure if Jesus
we
came
can't
down,
decipher.
if
We
Jesus
can't
like beamed
decipher
into
his
my room,
strategic moves in order to.
If Jesus like magically appeared in my room and said, "Here's the right, here's the wrong. I'm Jesus." Well, surely I would be a Christian at that point. Yeah.
No, because at that point, that's not how it works.
Why
At that
not?
point, that could be anything. Because if you believe in entities,
Fuck no,
if
that
you want,
couldn't be anything.
listen,
does that happen to you
no.
frequently? That's not a
If you
frequent
want,
experience for
if
me.
you want to talk about, oh, he could just appear in my room, and you want to say that in a sense of Christianity, well, there's entities. And that could be anything. So you wouldn't believe that, okay?
I
But
totally
what I'm
would
saying
believe
to you,
that. That would be like probably the most persuasive thing that's ever happened.
okay, now let me talk about this now. So Erica Kirk, okay, let's get into it. What do you think? So do you think she's a real grieving widow, or is she a Mossad agent?
I'm not gonna take a stance on this.
Okay, sorry. But let's go back to the topic, yeah? We can both agree now, yeah? I can agree and you can agree that we can't perceive God. Can we say that?
Okay.
Yeah, we can agree, yeah?
Sure.
Perfect. Okay. So now, what's the difference between me believing in him and you not believing in him?
One of us is
the
right.
way Okay, and one of us is right. You are correct in saying that. You are correct in saying that. Now, I think you also have the belief that out of the one of us, it's you. But I would also say that that's false. Now, we both believe in God, okay? Now, the difference between me and you is the way our lives unfolded. Now, your life could have unfolded a certain way, and mine could have unfolded a different way. Now, some people have the worst lives, and that drives them towards God, and some people have a good life, and it drives them away from God, okay? But what it is how you view, like, I'm going to go back to the painting. In my eyes, everything around us shows a sign of intelligent design. If you're on an aircraft,
can I ask a
you're
question
flying.
about that really quick? So my kidneys produce rocks, you know, they make rocks, and sometimes not me specifically, but you know, many people, and maybe me one day, have to piss
Piss 'em out.
out these like sharp rocks, and it's like the worst pain of their entire lives, according to these
Yeah.
people. That doesn't look intelligently designed at all, unless the person who designed it
Pain
is
is a
like,
virtue.
like a serious, oh, then staple your balls right now.
Without pain, how would we
Then
how would
staple,
we
if
even know?
pain is a virtue, then staple your balls right now.
Okay. Pain no, that's senseless pain. Okay? Pain
Oh,
pain within
as opposed to kidney stones.
yeah, naturally. Because listen, old age, okay, as you grow old, what would and if you didn't feel pain or if you didn't wither away, how would you know that you've grown old?
Based
You
on all the
wouldn't.
years that I lived.
No. How would you quantify the experience of life without the witheringness, the like it withering away and you slowly which gives it more meaning, which then you're trying to pick into semantics, whereas this whole clusterfuck of everything that's hard to make sense of is actually what makes it good.
How would I measure
every
the time?
single factor of this
You're asking,
clusterfuck.
wait, sorry, you're basically asking like how to measure the time? Well, I mean, in daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee.
Yeah, see, you're
in miles, in
being
laughter, in strife.
You're very pragmatic,
in
okay?
525,600 minutes.
Okay, that's my fault. You're very pragmatic. When I say time, I'm actually talking about the essence of like the good parts about time. Okay, the brilliance of time. When I say time, I'm talking about if we lived for 100 years, and we didn't age, we were Viltrumites. Yeah?
Yes.
And we didn't age or anything like that.
Viltrumites age. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Okay, bro, you're very
you have like Oliver, and he's like still like a kid, although he's like half bug, so he ages quickly. And then
yeah.
Okay.
I know that. Yeah. And yeah, so but listen, you're questioning every single semantic that has to do with, okay, why do I get kidney stones? What I'm telling you is that all that clusterfuck of bad and good and all of this actually is what derives the meaning, and like it makes everything like you put 3 kgs on that side of the scale and you put 4 kg on that side of the scale and it tips out of balance. No, there's 3 kgs on this side and there's 3 kg on that side, and it's all a balance.
Does anyone know what this guest is talking about? The kgs?
Yeah, look, you're actually a very good debater because you've actually taken me away from my point. Now, let's get back to it, okay? Because you know what you're doing, and I know that you know what you're doing.
Oh, you mean pounds? Oh, sure. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
No, pounds is what they spend in England for when they pay for things. I don't know what you're talking about.
No. We won the war. It's measure of either
what,
weight
the war
or
on
mass.
fast food, or
I mean, we won the Revolutionary War. So we first. Of all, it's soccer, and second of all, pounds is a measure of weight.
And third of all, you're pretty fond of wars, aren't you guys? But anyway,
I'm anti-war.
Yeah. Well, anyway, listen. How you're sitting at the end of the day, and this is not to be rude or anything.
Yeah.
You are sitting here trying to conceptualize and perceive something that's imperceivable, in which all your arguments are derived on the 2D plane, whereas he lives on the plane in which you cannot even perceive. Okay, so it's either you have faith or you don't, and the way my life is going, I have faith. So that's really what it is. You get me? And that's all it'll ever be. So and it's okay on both sides of the spectrum. So you have to just figure out what's best for you.
Oh, and thank you so much for the $525 gift. Holy fucking shit, Owen. That's like insane. Thank you so much. I actually can't even believe that. I'll speak more about that in just a second. 525,000 but it's like, it's 525. That's crazy. Sorry, I got a bit distracted.
It's because I'm such a good guest and he's so entertained that
I am. I'm very entertained.
What? Okay, good.
Sure, but sorry, I think my mind like reset.
Do we split that? Do we?
For sure, dude. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And we can both get new iPads. And
yeah, we will.
Yeah. Okay.
There's going to be lots of iPads. They're going to be next to the the rabbits that you'll
Can
you'll
I
be able
can
to
I
tend
read up
to.
and can I read up and then I'll become an orbiter? Can I?
Is that what you want for yourself? You want to become an orbiter?
I mean, I wouldn't mind.
Okay.
Because eventually I will. Well, I think I won this, so yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna take that. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
take that to the win.
Definitely. I mean, I think I lost this, frankly. So I think it lines up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Although, do you think that like people getting kidney stones like adds value to their lives? I think if you ask the average person with kidney stones, they'd say that was like the worst thing I've ever experienced. Why the fuck would that happen to me?
Let me put it this way. Okay. Not getting kidney stones adds value to your life. Okay.
Yeah.
In a
I
world
agree
where
with
kidney
that.
stones exist, and you're at an age in which maybe you should possibly have kidney stones, and you don't, that would add value to your life in a sense where you can be then grateful for not having them.
At the cost of all the people
Yes
who
or no?
actually get them.
And what do they have that you might
And
not
to
have?
be clear,
It's an
actually,
exchange.
you probably wouldn't even think very consciously about how grateful that you are to not have kidney stones. Typically, the only time when you appreciate the things that haven't gone wrong is when they do go wrong. That's why, even though I'm not sick right now,
Not
I'm
necessarily.
sure that I would appreciate the state that I'm currently in more when I'm actually sick. I'm sure I would
Yeah, but
appreciate not having
not.
kidney
I get what
stones
you're
more
saying. But
when I
if
do have kidney stones
but
because
if
of like the
kidney
horrific
stones and
pain.
no, because if all those clusterfucks of diseases that could possibly get you during old age don't get you, but they never existed, so there's no possibility of them getting you, then there's nothing to be grateful for. So the fact that they all exist and you haven't gotten it, that's something to be grateful for, and you would think about that.
I mean, I think it's crazy that you think like the greater good to kidney stones is that the people who don't get kidney stones are able to like look at the people who are getting them and like appreciate it.
Yeah,
It
but
seems like
that's
at
your
that
idea.
point,
But
like
that's
God
your
should make way worse diseases.
that's your conceptualization of kidney stones, though, because in your head, kidney stones are so. Kidney stones, for me, they're natural. Over time, your kidney builds up. There's residue that builds up that then hardens, that then whatever. It shows it's something natural that happens within your body. There's nothing necessarily wrong with your body, but it happens.
Why would
And
God design it
there's
that way?
Why would God design it anyway? It's not up to you to question. Why would
It
God
is up to me to
design?
question. You
Why
said it
would
looks
God
intelligently
design?
designed. It looks intelligently designed by like a sadist. It's crazy. It's crazy that our kidneys produce little rocks.
That's your
Imagine having to
perception.
piss out like a shard of glass. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's your perception. Imagine getting to have a mother and a father. Like imagine getting to have running water in your house and lights and like what are you perceive like like oh we can both play that like we can both do it. Imagine getting to have your first love and to fall in love with the love of your life. Like imagine like so what? There's kidney stones like in a now it's an imperfect design. There's the perfectness comes from the imperfectness. So like what are you trying to say? Explain.
What? It's a bit of a contradiction saying that, the world is perfect because of its imperfections. It would be both perfect and imperfect. Also, I think the world would be a better place without kidney stones. Let's say that there's a button in front of you, and if you push that button, nobody will ever have kidney stones ever again. Do you think pushing the button?
No, because I don't know.
What the fuck is
Listen,
wrong with you?
listen,
You wouldn't,
I don't
you wouldn't
know
get
that.
rid of kidney stones if given the option?
No, I would not interfere with God's design. Listen, I don't know what that knock-on effect can have.
Okay.
Maybe if you don't piss out, that's get rid of kidney stones. Okay, then all the stuff that builds up in your gut just stays there, and you die instead. Oh,
Or,
sorry. Oh,
or maybe there could be like
feel
some better
I'm actually
system.
so mad that God's made a way for it to actually exit your body. Oh
You
shit.
know, God's
Do you
all
not think about it in that
powerful.
essence?
He could just will the grime out of existence.
But see, this is what I'm talking about. You're playing a semantics game.
It's
whereas
not a semantics game.
it is. This is completely.
What's the word meaning that my argument relies on?
The word meaning that
Yeah,
you're
semantics
arguing.
refers to like specifically arguing about the meaning of a word. What's the meaning of the word that we're arguing about? Otherwise,
No,
it's
it
not
does.
semantics.
That's not semantics. No,
Oh.
semantics don't refer to fighting about the meaning of a word.
Listen,
it
I don't
means
know
you're
what
fighting
I
about.
don't know what your mother or father taught you, but I mean, that's just what semantics means. Semantics literally
you're
just
talking-
refers to like the meaning of words.
No.
Okay.
No.
My bad.
But in the way, okay, listen, you might be right in saying that, but in the way I'm using semantics, you are correct. You know which way I'm using it. So
I
don't
absolutely
try that.
don't. If you're
Don't
using it
try-
in something other than the study, like, you know, what words mean, you're using the word wrong.
Okay, but listen, no, but okay, listen,
I can't
semantics
believe we're
is
having
a
a
word.
semantics debate about
No,
the word
Listen,
semantics.
semantics
this
is a
crazy.
word, yeah, but within society we have phrases and terms. Okay, when I say to you, you're arguing semantics. If you want to take it word for
you just
word,
saying,
or you
like, you
can
don't
take
like
it
it?
metaphorically, for you're getting too in depth within. You know what I mean when I
In
say that.
order
You can
for this
conceptualize what I mean.
semantics to be a critique, the critique usually is that this isn't based on the substance. We're just arguing about like the sounds that our throats make. That's typically what it means when somebody says this is semantics. They're saying that this is not substantive.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
That's
I agree.
exactly
Like
what
this
I'm
debate
saying.
about what
So you
semantics
understand
is
the
not
terminology in
substantive.
which I would.
So
So
I
you
mean,
under-
you know, an ironic.
So you do understand it, but you broke it down to
No, that's
what
not
words.
semantics. You know, God.
No.
The fact that you wouldn't cure kidney stones if given the chance, or the fact that God can will, you know, for you to not have kidney stones every time you're about to have one, He can just will it out of your body such that you don't have to pass it. You know, that's not semantics. That's a substantive
It is,
dispute.
because guess what? It's your opinion.
Oh,
so it is
fuck.
semantics.
Oh gosh,
It's your opinion.
that was like really
It's your-
compelling.
listen,
I
no,
don't know why I didn't. I took another
genuinely.
loss to this guy. I'm like 0-2 at this
It's
point.
your opinion. I've
Fuck.
told you my opinion.
I don't know what
I'm
I'm gonna.
grateful.
I don't know what
I'm
I don't
grateful.
know how I'm gonna overcome this like philosophical juggernaut. It's your opinion. You know, I actually that's why they haven't been able to make progress in any philosophy journal in the past 2,000 years, because 2,000 years ago they figured out that it's just your opinion defense, and now every time somebody tries to publish a philosophy paper, there's immediate rebuttals to it that are like, well, that's just your opinion. And
Do you
then
know what? Do you
the
know?
author
Do you
like
want to know
collapses
why
in like
I'm saying
despair.
it's your opinion? Can I explain? Do
Yeah.
you know why I'm saying it's your opinion?
I agree, it's my opinion.
Because in our belief that God is imperceivable, all of this is semantics. Every conversation that me and you are about to have is semantics. That's why it doesn't matter. He's imperceivable. So anything why would he do this? Why would
Is he
Why
logical?
would he let me have kidney stones? Why would he let me be
Yes.
this looking and not
Yeah.
that looking?
Yes, I do
It's all
wonder.
semantics. That's what I mean by it, and you understand
Okay.
that.
Sure. And
Okay.
by semantics, you think like, you know, asking the question, why would the all good God allow kids to die of cancer? You think that that's not like a substantive question to ask about God. You think that that's like kind of besides the point, why God would
Okay,
allow
you've
kids
raised
to
the
die.
stakes.
I did, yeah.
Thank you. You've raised the stakes.
Yeah,
Okay.
double or nothing.
Now, listen.
I'm about to be 4-0, or I'm about to be 4-2.
Listen, yeah. Cancer. It's no good. It's not a good thing to have.
If you had the
Now,
ability to make it disappear, would you?
listen, who am I to toy with God's creation?
Sounds like a
Who
no.
am I? Who am I?
Is that a
Listen,
no? You're saying no,
will
you
I
wouldn't
ever
cure
have that-
cancer? If you were standing with the cure for cancer,
would I
you wouldn't
personally
use it?
would I personally cure cancer within a world I've created?
No. Like, would you as a human get rid of cancer if you had the cure for cancer right there in front of you?
Oh yeah, because that means if I were to be able to cure cancer, that means God's given me the ability to cure cancer.
Oh, what if
So
Satan
then I
gives you
would
the
then
cure
do
for
it.
cancer? If Satan hands you the cure for cancer, would you use it?
Okay, so do you understand who Satan is?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so if he were to hand me the cure for cancer, that would be a part of an even worse plan that would then have way worse effects on people. So then I would not.
Okay, sure.
So you get me?
Sure, yeah.
So you can't
at
phrase
that
that
point,
way.
you would assume that, fuck, now I'm 0-3, because if Satan gave you the cure for cancer, I mean, Satan has like a greater plan too, in the same way that God has a greater plan. They're out here
Exactly.
playing like 8 octillion dimensional chess, and then we're just trying to fucking keep up with them.
Okay, but listen, you made a point. Do you play chess?
I do.
Okay, now would you be as good as a grandmaster?
Yeah. I'd beat the fuck
No,
out of
for
a
real. No,
grandmaster.
for
I'd
real.
wail on them.
For real.
No, probably not.
Okay. So would you be able to even perceive any of the steps that are coming your way in terms of
Nope.
the person
You'd
you're
have like
playing
mate
against?
and like 25 figured out, and I'd just be
Okay.
sitting there in the
Okay.
fucking cuck chair getting
Okay.
lambasted.
So literally, yeah. The question is God real or is he not?
Mhm.
And it's literally you either pick a side or you don't, and you just don't, and anything you have like in your mind, why would he do this? Why would he do that? You won't be able to perceive it. All you can go based off of is your personal experience in life. And what I'm saying is the whole world could treat me shit and I could still believe in him.
But how do I know that my
the whole
personal
world could treat me good?
experience?
Stop, you're cutting me off when I make
yeah.
my point.
Okay.
The whole world can believe in him. No, sorry, the whole world can treat me bad, and that could make me say, fuck. They could push me in a direction where I do believe in him, and the whole world could treat me good, and I could go away from him. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like it's actually up to you. It's genuinely up to you and your perception of the world and how you take in every single moment.
Yeah, that's such a great
Okay.
view. How do I know that what I'm seeing actually maps onto reality and that God isn't just deceiving me for reasons that I couldn't possibly comprehend?
Okay, explain that further. Elaborate.
Yeah. So God does all of these actions, and we just can't understand why he does what he does, can't understand why he cures cancer, can't understand why he would create the kidney such that it produces kidney stones. We can't understand any of this. But at that point, how do I know that God wouldn't deceive me about what's actually going on around me, that he wouldn't fill my sense data with false perceptions in order to achieve some greater good that only God is capable of comprehending in his 8 Googilian dimensional chess?
Yeah. Okay. So that's where your previous point comes into play, like in terms of perceiving blue and perceiving green and all that sort of stuff. See that the essence of life in which you would derive pleasure from the color of green and you would derive pleasure from the color of blue, and the force within you that you would then call the soul then has some sort of reaction to that. Listen, we all innately know something.
Oh,
okay?
of course,
So
yeah. We just know. Yeah, the reason
it's
why we know
innate.
God
It's
isn't deceiving
innate.
us is because we just know.
Listen, you
Gosh,
even said it
that was
yourself.
very elucidating.
No, listen, the fact that you've claimed that you may perceive blue differently than you'd perceive green, and that then makes you have a soul. We all resonated with that when you said it.
Oh,
We all
that's
did.
not my belief.
It's okay, sorry then, but it's mine, and we all resonated with it. So
Oh,
that's the fact that we've all that. Okay, let's say now you can't prove it, but the fact that everyone here would not say that they don't have that.
How do you know that I said that though, and that God didn't just plant this like false memory in your head for reasons that you couldn't possibly comprehend?
Semantics.
Oh, that's right. And how do you know that it's semantics and that God didn't just plant that understanding of it into your head for reasons that you can't understand?
Okay, listen. So you want to move away from the truth with like disarming questions, like this is debate
Are these
bro
disarming
tactics.
questions,
Can
or
we
are
stay?
you disarmed?
I'm not disarmed. I actually have 2 arms. If you could look at my picture there's 2, and there's a few.
Holy shit, he does have 2 arms.
Yeah. So basically,
Okay, sure, checks out. But of course, I don't actually know that you have
you
two
are
arms
debate, bro.
because I
Like,
actually can't see. I can't know that my senses are reliable insofar as God has like higher order goods that I can't possibly comprehend that could lead him to just deceiving me about the world around me. So, I mean, how do you
okay,
know that God
listen.
didn't manufacture like the Bible as like a grand conspiracy to achieve
Let's put
greater
it this way.
order goods that you couldn't
Let's put it this
possibly
way.
fathom?
Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
hmm
If I made a good enough argument, are you as a person ready to concede and accept that God is real?
Yeah.
If I were to make a good enough argument.
Easy. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
If
what I'm
wait,
telling
sorry, the flip side. If I made a good enough argument, would you be ready to say that God isn't real?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what I'm telling you is, yeah, which is funny because I'm gonna go back to it.
hmm
There's no argument that can be made.
Oh,
So you
sure.
are unless you are willing to add an aspect of faith into your life, you are just the type of person that will never believe. Okay, so what you're doing here, again, semantics.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean? Like,
not at all. In fact, here's the argument for God's non-existence. Either God was always creating or not always creating. If God was always creating, then the universe always existed. If the universe always existed, then God never created it.
No. So you started that.
Sure. Let
You
me back
started
up
the
then.
argument of false.
The universe always existed, then it was never
No.
brought into existence.
I have a point of contention with one of the statements.
Sure, but let's just finish the argument. If the universe was never brought into existence, then God never brought it into existence. And if God never brought it into existence, then God didn't create it.
Look, this argument assumes a lot of things that out of nowhere, okay? This argument assumes that God is always creating.
It assumes either he was or he wasn't. So if God never brought it into existence, then God did not create it, which is a contradiction. And then the alternative path, so we just explored what happens if God was always creating it. The alternative path here is that, if God was not always creating, then God changes from not creating to creating. If God changes, then God is in time. If God is in time,
pen and paper,
then he didn't create time.
Thanks for the support, pen and paper. I do appreciate that. I know that was very sincere of you.
If God exists, then he created time. Therefore, God does not exist. Sure. So I guess which of these premises, is this clear? Do I need to maybe reformat it somehow?
Go over it. I'm dyslexic.
Okay. So we have premise 1 that either God was always creating or not always creating. Do you agree with that one?
No.
You don't agree that either God was always creating or not always creating?
Yeah. Why is it creating? What do you mean?
Because presumably you think God is the creator. So you think that he created? You said as much earlier.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with anything? It's
fuck.
You haven't
semantics,
tied that statement. Yeah. You haven't tied that statement down to anything. That's just
I haven't tied it down to anything other than the 9 or the fuck.
Either God was always creating or he was always creating or always not creating. I think you can leave that out.
Sorry. He was either always creating or not always creating.
Okay, or not always creating. Okay, so but why wouldn't he be able to create and then cease to create?
Was he always creating?
Why can't he create and then cease to create?
But was he always creating? Was there a state before he starts creating? I mean, does he, in this example, does he start creating or is he always creating and then at some point he stops?
He can stop whenever the fuck he wants to stop. Like,
I'm not asking if he can, I'm asking if he did.
yeah.
Sure. So you think that God was always creating, in which case the universe just would have always
No.
existed.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
He was
That
creating
makes
from
absolute-
eternity, so the universe exists from eternity.
Either God was always creating or not always creating.
Yeah.
That has no meaning.
Oh,
That sentence has no meaning.
you don't think it means anything to say that either God was always creating or not?
No.
Do you think it
That it-
has any
is it-
meaning to say like either the sky is blue or not?
Not if this like no, because
You
you're
don't think that has meaning?
you're applying an action to the sky. It's relevant to say whether the sky is spinning or not, but you can't say whether was the sky always spinning or was it like
You
you
can
can't-
say, was the sky always spinning or not always spinning?
But why would you say it? Why it has no meaning
Because
if you don't
it has
know.
a relevant connection to the things that are below
The
it.
only reason you can say the sky was always spinning is by looking at the sky and being able to perceive. Like that's where me and you go wrong.
I'm not making
this-
the claim that God was always creating. I'm saying either he was or he wasn't, one of the two.
Yes, but there's no answer to that because you can't perceive him.
Yes,
Like,
luckily,
even look,
luckily,
this question
both of them
you
lead to a
just
contradiction. So we
Okay,
don't know. We
continue
don't
then.
need to know whether God was always creating or not always creating because God is fucked either way.
But the fact that you put that there in order for someone
Mm-hmm.
to then tie themselves down to that argument, and then you then inflict the other answers onto them because of they said the first one,
yeah,
and you say you tie. It's a debate style in
it
which
is.
it is,
It
and
is.
I can't even perceive what that first question means because of the way I view God.
Okay, you can't
'Cause
even
it's
understand what it means to ask, was God always creating or was he not always creating?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Okay. I think that might be a personal failing, to be honest. I think
Nah,
I might. I
bro.
think at this point I might be like 1 in 3.
Look, I'll give you that one, but
Okay.
you're checkmated. Pen and paper said I'm winning. Ken and paper said I'm winning,
Oh,
and he's a mod,
damn.
so I would remove him.
I
as a
I
mod.
will remove Ken and paper.
Yeah.
Mods, crucify Ken and paper. He'll be begging for mercy.
So who's ignorant out of the two of us guys?
Close call there. Close call there. we were real close.
Oh, it's the accent. Who's ignorant out of us?
I'm sure we're all. Oh my God, Lou. Lou actually muted him for the entire live.
How dare you?
Holy shit.
Guys,
Wait. Let's.
Ken and paper texted me. He DM'd me. He said he secretly believes in Jesus.
I heard that's why he's been excised from the community.
Yeah.
Ken and
He
paper.
said, "Don't tell Ian. Don't tell Ian, but I believe in Jesus." That's what he said.
No,
I don't know why.
Yeah,
Sorry, I did tell Ian. I apologize.
that's okay.
Yeah, look, we got into the semantics, whereas I had one basic argument in which you do agree, but that's when you use your debate bro tactic.
I know, I do.
At the end of the day,
You know what I think it probably is? I think the reason why I rely so much on debate probe tactics is because my heart is hardened against the possibility of God. I hate God, which is why I have to pretend that he doesn't exist. I suppress the truth in my own unrighteousness in that way.
And you know what's funny? Yeah. Because like the humor and like irony derives from like the truth. So no matter the fact that you're saying that, you innately know why you're actually like that, which is funny. Unless you are just no, I don't know. But listen,
I'm more of a B.
I got I got under the leprechaun skin.
Bro, what the fuck?
Sorry,
I
it's
thought
not my
that
fault.
I for a second there I thought that you were streaming like the next generation of like Jurassic Park.
Who?
You.
What happened?
Sounds like a fucking pterodactyl was over there.
Oh shit.
I'm sorry.
So
that was cruel.
So does not
unusual.
believing in God allow you to make fun of people? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Ken and Paper disapproves. He's DMing me.
No,
Ken and
it's
Paper.
not fair.
Pen and Paper. Can
It's
you
not
stop
fair.
DMing me your love for Jesus, please?
Mhm.
Can you stop it?
Yeah.
Like, I understand. I love him too. But
Pen and
like,
Paper and Jesus sitting in a tree.
he's confessing his love for Jesus.
AISSING.
He's confessing his love.
It's so weird that you singled out like this one person. Okay.
I am telling. Am I singling him out, or is he actively DMing me?
You are
like,
singling him out.
He's actively DMing me right now. It's popping
no,
up
if he
on
was
the screen
actively
as we
DMing
speak.
you, you would have to go off the app. There's no way to check your DMs from the screen that you're on.
Do you want to debate that now?
Yeah. Take a screenshot and show.
I wouldn't like to share my screen now because there's a lot of personal information. But you know where it's coming up? It's coming
the
up
DMs?
on the notification tabs.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Believe it or not, I know Ken and Paper in person. I do know who he is. So
I bet. Name one
So
fact about him.
Hey, Ken.
What's his stance on the Oxford comma?
All I know is I see him every Sunday in church. Okay,
And
that's
what's
all I
his
know.
stance on the Oxford comma?
What's his stance? I wouldn't be able to tell you his stance because
Fuck,
I don't
everyone
even
knows.
know.
Everyone knows Ken's stance on the Oxford comma. Everyone knows it.
Yeah,
I'm starting to
I
think
don't
that you don't know him at all.
I'm only a new orbiter, so you know I'll have to figure it out. You know,
Okay.
that kind of way. But yeah, look, I'm gonna go read the Bible and I'm gonna come back here and genuinely bust your balls.
Please.
So yeah,
That'd be fun.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
See you then.
See you later.
Gosh. Sometimes I feel like fucking like Scrooge McDuck with like the money signs in my eyes, where I'm like, wow, this is gonna make spectacular content. Maybe that's a personal failing. Okay, wait. $525? The fuck? That's crazy. $525 over Venmo. Owen, thank you so much. That's like, I don't know. I think that's the most I've ever been gifted in my entire streaming career. Thank you so much. That's massive. I mean, like, I really appreciate that. That's going to be able to do more for me than you could possibly imagine. I don't know. I'm thinking about upgrading my desk setup. Thank you so much, Owen. I really appreciate that. And I know, I don't know. I think you mentioned that you don't need like the recognition, but I really do appreciate it. And I want you to know that I really do appreciate it. Like, that's huge for me. Thank you so much, Owen. Robert, thanks so much for the super chat. I appreciate the $10 super chat. Keep on keeping on. Thank you so much. Let's get a big W for Robert. Grimlock, thanks so much for the super chat, the $10 super chat for the hydration reminder. Make sure that you're hydrating such that you don't get kidney stones. Robert, thanks so much for the $2 super chat. Appreciate it. You're welcome for the content. Glad to do it. Yeah, Tiger Lily. I already read that one. Sonos Percussion. Holy shit. Thanks so much for the 50 memberships from Sonos Percussion. That's girthy. That's fucking massive. I really appreciate that. I don't know. Big donations like that are spectacularly useful for me for improving my stream setup. You know, I don't know if this is like well, I suppose it probably is a money thing, but I'm thinking about, I mean, my vertical stream dropped. Thank you so much. Or wait, the wrong one. Excuse me. Was the one I was looking for. Not thank you so much. Had a bit of a brain bug there. Fuck, dude. That's really massive. Thank you so much. Relax with Russell. Thanks so much for the super chat. I don't know, Ian. I'm not convinced. Been thinking about your moral argument. How can you have objective morals when Ian anti-realism is true? True. Actually, I reject premise 1 of the argument. You're not an agent. I'm not an agent. I don't even exist. You know? And then like the citation is like the Buddha 500 BC. Reverend Nate, thanks so much for the super chat. Khalid wants the complaint department, not the call queue. True. Mr. Peiko, thanks so much for the super chat. Mary Roach's book Spook has a good section on the whole 21 grams thing. Turns out, for maybe obvious reasons, it's surprisingly challenging to get an almost dead person to die on a precision scale that's physically isolated. That makes sense. Dairy Fiend, thanks so much for the super chat. Rent the musical mentioned? Yeah. You know, when I was younger, I used to think that, you know, nobody should pay rent watching the cast of Rent. But at this point, my position has evolved. I think only the cast of Rent should have to pay rent, and everybody else should be off the hook. Helping MAGA deconstruct, thanks so much for the super chat. Scorecard, Dr. Blitz 0, Ian 0, Special Pleading 2. It's unbeatable. Reverend Nate, thanks so much for the super chat. On the edge of my seat, wondering what Ian playing chess has to do with everyone in the world treating Kool-Aid bad. How are those things connected? It's because God is playing like 8 trillion dimension chess to determine why, you know, your entire family is going to die in a car crash. It's just it's the plan, dude. You got to trust the plan. Space Rat, thanks so much for the super chat. You do great work, Ian. Love your content. You deserve every donation. Here's my chip in this week. Thank you so much, Space Rat. I'm glad that I'm able to make content for you. This is like, I don't know, this is like a dream. I love this. But I appreciate all of you. Only landlords should pay rent. True. Something on Twitch? Do we have Twitch subs? Where Fee-Fi Fo-Fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Now, be he alive or be he dead, I'll use his bones to make my bread. Hershey Nick, thanks so much for the 10-month Prime subscription. Appreciate it. Carrie White, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. That's incredible. I really appreciate you. 15 gifted subs. Warmaha, thank you so much for that. The 15 gifted subs. Apparently that's like over a lifetime, but I really appreciate it. All right. Well, I'm heading out. I love all of you. If you want to get started with philosophy, but you have not a clue where to start, you should consider joining the book club. It's discord.gg/allegedlyian. You know, you must be 18 or older to join the Discord, but we're reading Michael Huemer's Knowledge, Reality, and Value. In that book, we're reading specifically the 14th chapter. It's the chapter on utilitarianism. I'd love to see all of you there. Oh, wait, sorry. Drometheus, thanks so much for the super chat. Hey, Ian, hope you're well. Can you prove beauty, love, thoughts, ideas? No, they're experiences, as is God. I mean, prove to somebody else. I mean, I agree. You can't prove like beauty, love, or the fact that you have like thoughts to somebody else. I mean, you have like good inductive evidence, which is more than we can say of God. And also, I've never experienced God, so that doesn't seem to be particularly helpful. But other than that, I love all of you. Have a great time. Justin's live. Go raid Justin. You love Justin. Go raid Justin.